It's like I really do believe that like new businesses should try marketing funnels across the board. Try every different little thing and see what is getting you the best ROI, and then continue. There are obviously huge limitations right now with what like AI's abilities are. It needs to be aided a lot by human. But I think anybody that's not using AI to like supercharge your workflow is missing out big time. Because
Welcome to Built by Fire. I'm your host, Spence Parks. Built by Fire is about keeping the entrepreneurial fire burning through every challenge, setback, and season of growth. Built by Fire is where we have real conversations with entrepreneurs, high performers, and leaders. We break down the decisions, systems, failures, pivots, and lessons that help them build meaningful careers, businesses, and lives. We talk about leadership, innovation, tech, marketing, and more. Plus, what it really takes to turn your ideas into a reality. So whether you're building a business, pursuing a dream, leading a team, or striving for greater success, Built by Fire is for you. So let's jump in. We've got Carter Gilbert with us here today. He's the owner of Granite Garage Floors, and really excited to be with him. Welcome, Carter.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so Carter, kind of tell me a little bit about your journey and kind of how you ended up in this position that you're currently at.
So my background originally was in automotive. So I grew up, my dad owned dealerships. I washed cars. That was my first job ever when I was 9 or 10 years old. And eventually, after I got out of college, started working with an automotive consulting company for car dealerships. So that is really my background, is kind of in the automotive space. But what we do with the automotive consulting side was a lot of process installation for car dealerships. And so I was looking for a business to invest in back in 2023, and was really focused on finding a business type that aligned with what I thought I was good at, which is consistent process. Um, I would say marketing, like local marketing, hyper local marketing, which is something I originally started with in the consulting side, was marketing. And I think Granite was kind of a good fit for me personally, because it's a franchise. I own the Dallas Fort Worth area, but it was a good fit for me personally because I like to have a little bit better relationship with customers. We don't have as much throughput, so it allows us to have, if you only have a few garages a day, you get to shake hands with most of the customers, and you get to have a little bit better relationship as opposed to like a restaurant or something where you're seeing thousands of people every day. So that's
That's interesting about the marketing. How did that kind of translate over to previous things that you'd done in the past with marketing? Was it like a big difference trying to market a new product for you, or did most of the same concepts apply, or did you have to kind of play with it a lot?
100%. Uh, I would say it's so specific. Everybody knows that like once you start marketing your specific product, you learn so much more about how to market that product better and better. So I think it's even if you have a marketing background and you understand the basics of like running Google ads or Facebook or however you're marketing, mailers, all that stuff, I think it's so specific to the type of customer base that you're targeting that while I knew the knowledge of the platforms, it almost feels like you're starting from scratch in essence. Like I really do believe that like new businesses should try marketing funnels across the board, try every different little thing and see what is getting you the best ROI, and then continue to develop with that, rather than just this is the one thing that we're going to go with, or this is what other people have done that's worked. I kind of just launched across the board. It was like digital, it was print, it was social, it was all that stuff. And that I think that's helped me grow.
Yeah, no, it's crazy because like with the way it's changing today, like every single week, there's like new processes coming out with AI and new apps that you can buy, new methods of outreach. And so I feel like a lot of people tend to get overwhelmed not knowing where to start. So what would you recommend to someone who's just getting started with marketing their product? Where do they start when there's 100 different things they could be doing?
I think really understand how you sell the product. For us, it's an inherently visual product. Like coming from automotive, the typically you get a lot of leads that are just people searching for a specific car. They type it into Google, they want that car, and you pay to buy their click. They go to their website, they check out, you get that lead. We get some of those for epoxy, but the number one lead source that we get for paid advertising, outside of referrals and whatnot, is like visual ads, like social media.
Oh, wow.
Like
Yeah, that's great.
they're browsing through social media, they see what the floor looks like, they see an install, they click on it, and it goes, they go and fill that out. It's not as common to do that in like automotive space. You're scrolling through like Facebook, you see a vehicle, you might click on it, but it's not as likely for you to like convert in that sense because it's not necessarily, it's really hard to get exactly targeted ad. Whereas if somebody was thinking about a garage floor, if they see a garage floor, it's kind of like one size fits all, as opposed to like if I show you an ad for a truck, but you're not in the market for a truck, if that makes sense, or
Yeah, 100%.
it needs to be more specific in order to be effective at a visual level. Whereas our product, they see something cool and they're like, I want something cool too, even if it's not the exact color or finish that they want.
Got it. So it sounds like, going back to kind of what you were saying, it sounds like kind of years leading up to before you started this new venture, you kind of already thought of yourself somewhat as an entrepreneur. Is that correct?
100%. Yeah, that was always the goal, was to own my own business. And I always had that like mentality whenever working, was how can I provide more value to the business? And that's the same mentality I think that every entrepreneur has, is like, how can I make my business more valuable? How can I add more value to my business?
At what age would you say you started thinking of yourself as an entrepreneur?
That, I think, I knew like really young that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. Like I was really interested in like finding ways to invest. Like investing was a big thing for me, and it still is. Um, and finding ways just to make money, and then also to provide value in some kind of way.
Got it. Would you say that part of it was a confidence thing? Were you always confident that you were going to be successful in what you set out to do, or did you kind of go through maybe a journey where you developed more confidence over time?
That's a good question. I think I think definitely the confidence has come more so over time. Uh, Part of it is when you're young, or like you haven't experienced it, you just assume you can do it, because like if nobody's told you no and you haven't done it before, ignorance is bliss. Like you just believe that you're going to be able to do it because there's nothing to say you couldn't. Like there's no evidence to suggest that. Um, but I would say like for me, the what I was what I realized like after working and after being done with college and working full time, understanding like how I can provide value. That's all a business is doing, is providing value to somebody else. And once you learn how to do that, you can do it in any space. Like you just need to provide more value than as much or more than what you're charging for it. So um, for me, that has always been easy to do by just adding skills. Like I find myself adding and teaching myself new skills constantly, and that helps me become more valuable and pivot my time into things that are going to be more effective for the business.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. I found that most entrepreneurs that I know are always excited about what's the next thing that they're going to attempt or learn or grow from. And I feel like some people will set out on something, and then when it doesn't work the first time, they think, oh, I guess maybe entrepreneurship's not for me, and they move on to something else. And from my experience, I feel like having that mentality of you're just going to keep on going no matter what happens, and keep experimenting with things and keep learning new things. And part of it is like learning to love the journey that you're on, learning to love the chase. Because I think when people get too caught up on the end result of, hey, I'm successful, I accomplished this thing, and they forget to focus on enjoying the journey of learning, sometimes they cut themselves short of opportunities because of that mindset. That's at least what I've seen. Have you seen that in your experience, or something similar to that?
Oh, 100%. Like if you're, especially if you don't have like a longer term focus as well. Like if you're so focused on, I need the next 3 months, you're never going to do the things that will actually help you grow long term. Like relationships are a big part of it. Like getting referral partners and building relationships with other businesses are so valuable. And you're not going to see immediate results from that. Like for me, it was probably 12 months before I started seeing like significant um, financial benefit from networking groups and meeting with people regularly. It takes time to get to know people, and and it's always about giving more than what you're getting. If you just consistently give out value to other people, eventually it'll come back to you. That's just my belief, is that if you do a good job and take care of people, eventually you're going to grow, you're going to get more referrals, all those things. People will want to do business with you.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I've seen that as well in some of my jobs and business ventures where it's like you got to have patience. You're doing that grind every day and you want to see the results. And sometimes it's not till months later or a year later until you really see that what you were putting in over those months is really, really paying out. So that being said, would you recommend for anybody who's interested to try entrepreneurship out, or who's cut out for entrepreneurship? Would you say anybody can do it, or what are like the things that someone has to have for you to be like, yeah, you should go for it?
The number one thing is going to be consistency. Like if you're a consistent person and you are able to stick to habits, then you're going to have a really good chance at entrepreneurship, because as long as you dedicate yourself to being consistent without constantly measuring, like we just talked about, like if you join a group or something like that, and you're constantly looking at what is the ROI that I'm getting out of this, you're never going to fully invest in it, because you're constantly waiting for that ROI to happen. If you just go and say, I'm 100% fully invested for 2 years, I'm going to do this, and we're going to see what happens, you're going to do all the things that are actually needed in order to get you where you want to go.
And I don't think most people can do that. That like 2 years
No.
is for someone to say, hey, I'm going to do this for 2 years, no matter what, even if it's 10 times harder than what I thought it was going to be, or even if XYZ happens, to just keep going for 2 years. That's definitely a huge mindset shift from what I think I've seen most people have.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the situation and what kind of business you're doing, I don't think entrepreneurship is right for everyone, because you have to have obviously that consistency. But I also think, depending on how, if you're going full time with something, then that really hurts you, because you have a lot of pressure. If you're cutting off like any kind of salary that you have and you're then starting a business, you're under more pressure to start generating revenue quicker. And that changes the mentality as well, where you're trying to get short-term results. And so based off of what kind of business you're going into, I think, and your situation, like financially, is going to dictate like what that looks like for you. But personally, I think you need to be, okay with doing something for a year or two without getting immediate results for it to actually yield and grow. And that's honestly, that's why you see people that if you have money, you make more money, because they have time. They're able to wait for things to happen. They're not looking for immediate get rich quick stuff. The people that make more money are able to wait for the ROI to come in.
Got it. Yeah. And what would you say was maybe throughout your journey, what are some things that you've ran into that were hurdles that were unexpected, that maybe would have knocked some people off course, but because of your resilience, you kept going?
Well, I mean, I didn't take a paycheck from the company for the first like 2 years, so it was just all reinvest into the company.
No, yeah,
And
that's
that's not
100%.
something that like most people are going to be able to do.
That says
But
everything right there. Yeah.
yeah, it's not like I got the company with that expectation, as like, I'm not going to take this unless I absolutely need to. I'm not going to take this for at least 2 years, and we're going to see where we're at that point. Uh, that would be a big piece. And then, um, I mean, I took over an existing company. I bought an existing company rather than starting a new franchise, which is a little different, because there's benefits. You're getting referrals and people coming in immediately. But the minute I closed on the business, is I had 3 to 5 jobs the next couple of weeks, and I have to fulfill them immediately. Whereas with the new business, you can kind of ramp up, you can do some training, all that stuff. I didn't even have time to get the true training done. It was like, we're going to go on floors immediately and start installing. Um, that I think would have not, that trial by fire immediately would have, I think, taken a lot of people out of it. But for me, it just like accelerated the learning curve. I paid for it in a lot of ways, of making mistakes, having to fix things, losing money on jobs for having to go back and do things the right way. But because that was something I was never going to compromise on. I was never going to cheap out on things. I wanted to make sure that it was always, this is the standard. It just took me longer to get there to that standard in the first couple of months, because I was still learning throughout the process.
Yeah. And that's the right thing to do no matter what, is to deliver the quality that they're expecting. But have you also seen that play over as far as referrals and satisfied customers go by word of mouth? Have you
Yes.
seen that benefit from that?
Yeah, 100%, especially with like channel partners or people that are going to consistently refer you business. If you deliver consistent, they know what they're going to get, they're going to continue to refer you, because it's not, for me, it's not worth my business to go and recommend somebody that I'm not 100% sure on. Or I think they do a good job, but, or maybe every 1 out of 3, they do a good job. Um, For me, it's not worth it jeopardizing my relationship with my customers, because if they come from me, like, they're going to forever associate us together. So it's really important, I think, to uh, prioritize your relationship with those people. Those customers are really valuable. The customers that have been referred to you by a channel partner, or we work with a lot of home builders, people like that.
I think it's cool how you set out on your search for your business. Was that a long process trying to find the business that was the right fit for you to buy into?
Yeah, I originally had been looking for just any business. Like, it wasn't necessarily going to be like a franchise. I happened to go kind of the franchise route at some point, got funneled into that, looked at a lot of different options, and then ultimately went with Granite. I would say it was probably like a 6-month process of trying to find what kind of business I wanted to start, whether it was something from scratch or a franchise. And the big thing for me with a franchise was that I wanted to go with a franchise that was uh, the fees that they were charging were going to be more than offset by whatever products I was delivering. So, as an example, I get bulk discounts for buying epoxy and clear coat through our vendors because we're a franchise. If I went out and did it on my own, I'd be paying way more than even the franchise fee, if you tack it on, even more than that for those supplies and materials.
That's so smart. Yeah. So it's like what you pay to the franchise more than pays for itself.
Exactly. Yeah. And the way I looked at it was, I've had other people that had gone into service industries where the margins were already tight, like 10 to 20%, and you're paying 10% to a franchise. And especially if you have a really low percentage of materials that are being delivered, and it's mostly service, it's really hard to justify a really big franchise royalty off of service unless they're providing you labor, because that's really what's costing. It's costing a ton of labor. So for me, that was a really important piece, because I'd had friends try franchises and not go well. I'd also seen other people that had started their own businesses from scratch and seen those growing pains with that too. But that's why ultimately I ended up going with Granite, was trying to find something that it offset those fees.
That's awesome. Now I've noticed there's a lot of garage flooring companies throughout the Dallas Fort Worth area. What's something that you do to set yourself apart from other competitors in your space?
I mean, number one is just going to be education. Like, we're not trying to sell anybody anything that they don't want or need. So it's explaining how we're different, how the products are different, and a lot of time educating them on what they've learned that either might be incorrect or what they've been told that was incorrect. The big thing with us is, like, we install all different kinds of coatings. And so that gives us the ability to give you a product that is perfect for your use case. And a lot of other companies, they only install one system or one or two systems, and they're trying to shove that system into any use case. And that's just not really how anything works. I mean, there's not one size fits all for anything. It's really specific to what your needs are, what your budget is, all those things. And that's the big piece of how we kind of differentiate ourselves, is just talking with the customer, explaining any questions that they have.
That's awesome. That reminds me of a saying I've heard where they say that the best salespeople sell the best product. So they're not always the best just because they're the best at sales, but because what they're offering is the best. So kind of like what you're saying is what you're offering to the customer is exactly what they need based off of their situation and what they're trying to accomplish. Where if they go with someone else, they could end up getting pushed in a direction that's not really going to meet their goals.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of the time you're dealing with companies, if they only install one system, they're kind of told those things. And it's just a salesperson that goes out and does it. I do all the proposals and estimates myself, because if they have any questions, I don't want them to just get some stock answer. Like, I want them to be educated on why we do this, why we recommend using these products and this use case and that kind of thing.
Cool. And for anyone watching this, Carter, who are some referral partners that you're open to adding to your network or working with?
I mean, really any kind of people in the trades are great referral partners for us. We work with roofers. I mean, anybody that's in the house, electricians, AC, all those are great referrals for us. And then builders are really good referrals for us, because it's really easy to get primarily we do all concrete coatings, but our biggest piece is obviously garage floors, as the name would suggest. So it's easiest to do a garage floor when it's empty. So when people are moving, it's the easiest time to get it done. So new home builders are great partners for us. Real estate agents, things like that.
Got it. Awesome. So how long have you been with Granite Garage Floors now?
3 years.
3 years. Okay. what is it like? So I guess now you're 3 years into it, and I'm sure there are some days where you're wondering, hey, I hope I made the right choice. I hope this is going to pan out the way I thought it was. But you seem very settled now into the success that you're having. Is that correct? Do you feel comfortable with the place that you've taken it to at this point?
I mean, I'm just the kind of person where I'm not ever going to be like comfortable per se,
Yeah,
um, or satisfied, I guess, with where it's at. Um, I think um, I'm happy with the ability that we have now to consistently deliver on the product, but there's always things that we can do to, improve. So, um, yeah, I don't know if that answered the question or not, but yeah.
no, yeah. Well, so part of it is like, do you have that, or just people in general, after doing something for 3 years, especially when you're responsible for the outcome, you're the sole person responsible for the outcome. It can weigh on you, but I feel like getting it to a spot where you feel like you've made it a success can at least be like an anchor point. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you slow down or you stop growing, but at least for me, that would be something where if I had like a goal in my mind and I hit that as like an anchor point of like, okay, yeah, I'm on the right track. Now I'm going to double down and do this X, Y, Z. But that's kind of what I was getting at a little bit with my question. But
Yeah, I think it's like tiers. Like once you hit a certain tier, and then it becomes the next tier. But yeah, like for me, I'm definitely in a better place knowing that it's on a trajectory going up. It wasn't. There was never a time where it was just everything was coming crashing down for more than a couple of weeks at a time. Where it was like it was never a long period of that, and that's I would say where a little bit of that uh, anxiety or fear of failure comes from, I think, is really long sustained periods of just not going the right way. So I think for me, like I've had consistent, for the most part, growth. And so that has really helped kind of settle a lot of that anxiety. But it's still, in 2 weeks, I could have the same thing. Your problems become different at different ages, at different stages. So they can be overwhelming. Just when you are only focused on that whatever problem you're facing, I think is overwhelming at that time. So that's why it's really hard, especially when you first start. You're always going to be facing problems that you've never faced before. Even though I've been in a business, for 3 years now, there's a problem that I'm going to face in the next month, several problems that I've never seen before. And you're going to continue to have that where it's a different kind of problem, but it's a brand new problem. So that if you're good at problem solving, I think you'll eventually be okay as an entrepreneur. Like problem solving is probably one of the top things.
got it. And Carter, what is like your motivation for taking this path of entrepreneurship, which is, sometimes riskier and you have to be more patient with it and you don't always know if it's going to succeed. Is there a motivating factor behind why you do what you do versus some of the more traditional routes?
Good question. I think part of it is like I know I'm capable of doing it, and if I didn't do it, I would feel unfulfilled in a way where it's like I know I'm capable of it, so I need to see how it's going to go. Like I need to go and try. Um, so that I guess is really why ultimately I did that. It's like I always wanted it. I always wanted the control to be able to do it myself. And if I was constantly working for somebody else, would never feel like at least even if I did it and I failed, I would at least have tried. And I kind of can go back to just getting a stable paycheck and doing that, which is not the end of the world. Like I think a lot of people, you need a lot of those people. There's nothing wrong with
Yeah.
it.
And I remember you also mentioned kind of at the beginning the importance of having time available. Is part of your reason behind entrepreneurship trying to have more time later on in your career so that you're not having to work 40 hours a week your whole life? Would that be correct?
Yeah, I'd say like flexibility is a big piece of it. My dad always owned his own businesses growing up, and just seeing that the flexibility that it gave you to do that doesn't always mean like you're available all the time, but you're like not working all the time. But it just means when you need something, like you can prioritize things. If I'm the boss, if I'm not the boss, it's always going to be whatever the company's priority is first. Whereas I can prioritize family first and then put the company below that. Uh, so I think that's really the benefit of having your own business.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. That's kind of one of the reasons that I'm an entrepreneur as well is, the time piece is huge because it seems to me that a lot of jobs these days, especially salary positions, they can pay well, but they demand a lot of your time, a lot of availability. You're always having to be glued to your phone all the time, or your emails are ready at any moment. Not that that doesn't happen with entrepreneurship, but you have that ability to kind of delegate as needed when you have certain life events or things going on. Like I was talking to someone who owns a business where he does custom fountains for businesses, and there was one year where his parents, I think it was his parents, had passed away, and he ended up working half as many hours that year as what he normally did, but his income stayed the same. He was like, I don't know if it would have been like that long term. I guess he had built that up, but he basically had the same amount of jobs that he'd always had because he had been established, for 10 years or so. So he had that flexibility. So I think that's huge, where you have that flexibility as things come up in life, to create your own schedule, to create your own opportunities to spend more time with your family, kids, and all that. So I think that's probably one of the main motivating factors for myself and for a lot of people that I've seen. But yeah, I was just curious because I know everybody kind of has a different reason for what drives them. But I think as long as you have that reason of why you're doing what you're doing, and you keep that in your mind, it'll keep you going on those days where you're wondering if you'd made the right choice. So, yeah. But Carter, is there anything that kind of you want to highlight about your business to businesses in the Dallas Fort Worth area? Something that you get excited about with your business?
I mean, I always get excited whenever there's just a new kind of project that we've never done before. So, we just recently started doing sports courts, like pickleball courts, things like
Oh,
that.
that's awesome. That's a whole new area to tap into. That's
a whole
exciting.
different thing. So yeah, and it's a lot of the same stuff that we've been doing, but add some different elements like striping and putting lines on the court and whatnot. But that piece is just anytime I get something to do something unique, that's exciting to me. It's like a new problem to solve. But I mean, really,
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking about when I was talking about like enjoying the journey. I think people have to have a certain level of passion or almost obsession with something to really succeed at it and really set yourself apart. Because, like you're saying, when you have a new problem to solve, you get excited about it, you get invested in it, you dig into it. And some people have the attitude of they have a new problem to solve and they don't want to do it. They're just like, oh, I just want to do the same thing I've always done. And I think that is something that can definitely shut them out from opportunities and not be able to compete against the competition. Because I feel like there's in the entrepreneurial space, there's always someone who wants to come in to try to take your customers, take your clients, and you have to be on the edge, ready to almost kind of go to battle to keep the ground that you've gained. But
yeah, I think always being willing to do that is important. Always being willing to like be open to other options. Like as an example, after the freeze that we had last year in DFW, or earlier this year, I should say, there's been a lot of people that have had specific kinds of issues with the top layer of concrete delaminating or popping off. And so we've done a lot of driveway resurfacing recently with concrete overlays. But that's not something that within just epoxy, a lot of people will just stick to epoxy flake floors and that's their only thing. If we hadn't been willing to do that and learn those processes over the last year or so, we would have completely missed out on the opportunity. That's a pretty short-term thing. There's a lot of opportunity to help people resurface their driveways during this time because it's really the only option is either you resurface or you replace. There's not really anything else that concrete's going to continue to disintegrate unless they treat it. And so I think being ready to kind of pivot, and that became like the majority of our revenue for a couple of months.
Wow, that's huge.
Being willing to do that was super beneficial to us as far as long-term growth because that took us from 30% growth year over year the last 2 years to 80% this year. So,
got it. Do you have, I don't know, 5 years out? Do you have goals of like what your business is going to look 5 years from now, or 3 years from now, or do you see yourself finding a way to kind of remove yourself as the main point of contact for the business and finding someone else to kind of run it for you?
Yeah, I think I don't have as fixed timelines of what it looks like, but yes, like there's an ultimate goal of getting people installed at each level to kind of take different pieces. So if I go on a trip for a week, it's not going to be the end of the world. Whereas right now, a lot of time I'm scheduling around that, like, people writing before and after for proposals, estimates, things like that. Um, but that's ultimately the goal, is to get to a point where I can hand off some of those things. But really, what that means is it's probably just going to be expanding what I'm doing or what we're offering, or uh, finding another way to stay excited about it. I don't necessarily have an exact like 5 year plan, or like this is the time, a target date for something, because I'm just I believe that it should be based off of like when we hit this dollar amount or we hit this sales number. This is when you start doing these things. So that's how our plans are. We have a goal in 5 years to do something, but it's not so much time based as it is like, as long as we're continuing to grow, I'm not in as much of a rush to define, exactly when I would do that. But ultimately, yes, it's slowly. I'm even starting now, starting to hand off things and hire people to take different pieces away, and that way I can focus on where I can provide the most value, and ultimately hand off some of those pieces too, where I don't have to be as involved day to day with the business.
Awesome. That's great. And do you see yourself looking for another business venture to add to stack on top of this as you're able to do that over the coming years?
I think so. Yeah, I don't think, um, especially as like it becomes more autonomous. I think there's going to be a time where there's just not going to be enough for me to do if I'm handing off a lot of those pieces. So uh, I I try not to get. That's always the thing that I have to fight against, is like getting too shotgun, where you just see what sticks.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
100% focused on this right now, but once it gets to the point where it's continuing to grow, it's growing without me being 100% involved in the daily operation, then it would be time to look at other.
Well, maybe you feel that way, in your mind that you have all these ideas, but I think you've shown incredible focus, resilience, and entrepreneurial spirit to be able to just go for 2 years and not pay yourself and just grow this thing from kind of the start, and that's amazing to see you stick that out. And I think for anyone watching this who's starting something, buying something, or starting a new venture, I think that's the exact mindset that will help them succeed. And so, like you were saying, sometimes we have different ideas and we jump between stuff, but I think you've shown that you can really dial in and focus on something for a long period of time. What would you say was maybe the most kind of something that you went into the business thinking one thing, and then years into it, what's something that's kind of shifted your mindset?
I mean, for me, a big thing for like just this industry that I was surprised by, or this market that I was surprised by, was how competitive it was. I was just expecting to kind of not have. It's a very fragmented market around here. There's just so many people doing
Yeah.
concrete coatings, decorative concrete. Um, I think part of that is just because DFW is so industrial and it has a lot of skilled labor. Um, but that was a big thing where I was just expecting to kind of, you know, come in immediately and be able to kind of dictate. A lot of the time, if you don't have as much competition, you can kind of dictate what you want to do, and you fit. You let the customers kind of slide into that spot because you're one of the only options. Um,
Yeah.
you don't have that as much. You're not allowed to be as flexible with that, because you're getting compared to something else side by side, and so you have to, one, really differentiate yourself, and two, I think, be more competitive in pricing and things like that. But at the same time, don't get so caught up. I think that was some mistake I made early on, was getting too caught up in what other people were doing in their pricing, and trying to stick to what we were going to do, what our goal was. We're not always going to be the cheapest, but we're also not going to be the most expensive. We're going to provide a good value and a really good product in the end, but never uh, at the bottom of the barrel as far as pricing. Like, we're never going to be the cheapest for sure.
Yeah. I can see how that would be. I mean, myself, if that happened, if I went in with one mindset and then I found out, that new information that you gathered about the marketplace, I can see how that would be discouraging, and how you kind of had to adapt, overcome, pivot, and adjust what you're focusing on. What was something throughout your life that kind of prepared you to have that mindset to adapt and overcome, when a challenge arises like that?
I mean, I really just think I don't know that it's like an experience. I think it's just telling yourself that, like, that you're just going to find, like, you're going to find a solution to this. Your mentality has to be that there is no other option, in essence. Like, you're going to get through
Yeah,
this
yeah,
rather than getting bogged down with like, I can't believe, like you can immediately just, if you have an issue, just be like, ah, this is, you can complain about it and worry about it. But in reality, like you just need to fix the problem. So, I mean, it's easier for me to say that because I'm like a very like analytical person. I'm not as like emotional in a lot of the decisions I make.
got it, got
Um,
it.
and so that is, I think, a benefit to me where I can do some of those things without letting it affect me as emotionally. But I think really it's just a mentality that not necessarily one thing over time, but it's just telling yourself that there's no other option. You know, you gotta find a solution.
Let's say that garage floors or the industry that you're currently in disappeared, and you had to start a new business venture this year. What would you go into and why?
Well, it depends, I guess, if I'm starting, if I still have some form of income, like something with garage floors, then the next thing I've always planned on doing was investing in commercial real estate. Um, uh, Essentially buying a property, occupying it, and then renting out the rest of the space. But if I don't have a need for a business to do that, then likely in that something in technology. My background is kind of originally marketing and then pivoted into technology finance. So those are like the three pieces that I've like my skill set is in. And I've developed apps, full stack apps, even before everyone could develop with AI. But
Wow,
yeah,
that's fascinating that you have that skill and you're. It sounds like you just kind of know a lot of all sorts of industries. That's amazing. Sorry, I'll let you continue.
no, I think that is like the important piece is like just continuing to like add skills is it's always going to be more valuable to even if you don't use it every day to just have that skill available when you need it. Like right now, just we're having this issue with um, delivering a service, like managing the, when we're on site taking pictures of different things, and having the skill set that I have, I can just build something that fits into what we need for that
Okay, so you
specific
can
use
build
case.
custom tools and software for your own business as the need comes up.
Yeah, and I think now it's a lot easier for anybody to do that because if there's AI tools out there that'll let you do it, and it's a lot easier for anybody to go and do that, which is great. I think still having a better knowledge to program is still going to get you a little bit further, and you're going to be able to refine things a lot better because if you don't understand what the code is doing, like you're going to have a lot of time issues with code hallucinating and doing things you don't want it to, endless loops where you can't get it out of that. But yeah, I think just overall, like just continuing to add skills, I think is super valuable.
Yeah, no, it's so fascinating the conversation online with what the main concerns that people have about AI replacing jobs or whole businesses, right? Some of the business use cases are being replaced by new tools, new apps, and things like that. But I feel like with your line of work, I feel like it's probably a long ways away before AI starts replacing that type of work. But what are your thoughts on that? What's your opinion on that?
I mean, I'm always a belief that if you take away a value in a specific field, like let's say you cut half a workforce and now half that or that the other half is able to double the amount of output just using tools like AI. I'm of the belief that there's going to be other places that open up for that in the same way that like just everything is going to continue to evolve. We don't have uh, true cable providers as much anymore, or you don't have a home phone. But those are all jobs that just disappeared. But they didn't truly disappear. They just moved somewhere else into a different space. So I think a lot of that fear is people, if you don't understand something, you're afraid of it. Um, there are obviously huge limitations right now with what like AI's abilities are. It needs to be aided a lot by humans. Um, but I think anybody that's not using AI to like supercharge your workflow is missing out big time because
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
a
I
lot that it
agree.
can do.
Yeah, I feel like kind of the same way that you said it was perfect. Like there's so much that you can do with it that if you're not using it, you're going to have to do maybe, you might have to put 40 hours of work in to do what you could have done in 20. And if your competitors are doing that, then you have to, find a way to keep up with them. And so I think the way you said it is perfect that you don't necessarily have to be scared of it. You just have to understand what it means and how to kind of go with that wave, I guess.
Yeah, or if you don't want to understand it, you can find people that do, and then you start using them as a service to help build a system for you. Because you might spend $1,000 to do what would take you $30,000 worth of time. Because I mean, I've seen it even with developing. I still maintain apps that I've built in the past, and how quick the workflow has gotten with AI, where you can just update things. It's 5 to 10 times as fast as it was pre a lot of these tools. And that, I think, is where the huge value comes. You just have all this excess time that you didn't have before to do something else.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think it's interesting that you had that skill of apps, and then you went out and you did, you had the auto skills, and then you completely started this new venture with the garage floor. So they're like all completely different skills, but it sounds like you just use what you learn from each. You kind of like stack them on top of each other. Is kind of what I'm seeing from you, and I feel like the more skills that you have, they kind of overlay, and so down the road, if you ever wanted to start another business, it's not like you wasted any time on the skills that you spent developing, because you can always use those again. They can always kind of show up again in some sort of new form, it seems like. So
yeah, I think a lot of the time we tell ourselves too much that things are like industry specific. Like it's only about my business. This is kind of specific to my use case. But a lot of the problems that we have in business is like 90+% are the same problems. You're just a slight variation on it for your industry. But we all have similar problems. It's just, I think part of that comes with, as you see more businesses, like as a starting in automotive and seeing here, you see all the ways that they're similar more than they're dissimilar. So
awesome. Great. Well, hey, really appreciate your time today, Carter. It's been amazing to kind of get a look into the way your business runs, the way you operate, your mindset of giving elite level service to your customers at all times, and your resilience to your, I would better say your commitment to, your long-term goals is definitely something that's really inspired me. And I'm looking forward to, applying that into my ventures and sharing that with others as well. Carter, how can people connect with you and follow you and stay in the loop with what you're doing?
Yeah, we're on Facebook, Granite Garage Floors of West Dallas, Facebook and Instagram. And then as far as me personally, people, you can find my info anywhere, on our website, which is granitegaragefloors.com. And then we're the West Dallas location. So pretty much anything that goes through there or any of those platforms, I'm going to see. So that's the easiest way to get in touch with me.
Awesome. Thank you, Carter. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll stay in touch.
All right,
See ya.
sounds good. Appreciate it.